Quit. The Power of Knowing When to Walk Away. Author Annie Duke. Quit everything and succeed. In October 1974, boxer Muhammad Ali won one of the greatest victories in the history of sports, knocking out George Foreman and regaining the heavyweight title. He first won the title by beating Sonny Liston in 1964. However, in 1967, he was stripped of the title for 3.5 years after refusing to serve in Vietnam. Muhammad had to fight for 4 more years to qualify for the title fight. Ali's opponent was younger, bigger, stronger. He was considered indestructible. But Muhammad Ali won and cemented his status as the greatest boxer of all time. He became a symbol of perseverance for millions of fans. But the story did not end there. Ali didn't leave the ring for another 7 years, despite numerous unequivocal signals that he should leave the sport. The boxer's physical and mental health was rapidly deteriorating. In 1977, not only relatives, but also reporters, doctors, match organizers began to beg Muhammad to hang up his gloves. But he listened to no one. In 1978, Ali lost his title to Leon Spinks, who had only boxed professionally 7 times. In 1980, Muhammad was inexplicably able to get a medical clearance to fight reigning champion Larry Holmes in Nevada. Holmes cried after the match, because the fight was like beating a baby. And Sylvester Stallone, who was in the audience that night, described the last round of the fight as watching a dissection of a still living man. Muhammad Ali paid a high price for continuing to fight into his 40s. Toward the end of his career, he became handicapped. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The perseverance that helped Ali become a great champion turned out to be a disaster. Thomas Edison said, "Our greatest weakness is that we give up. The surest way to succeed is always to try again." Advice from successful people invariably boils down to the same tenet: persevere toward your goal and you will succeed. No one says that it is necessary to give up or turn down from the chosen path. Because in the perception of modern man, to abandon the conceived means to fail, to capitulate, to lose. Refusal supposedly demonstrates the lack of character. In fact, persistence is useless and even destructive, and refusal useful. Persistence and refusal, the two sides of the solution. Although it is customary to contrast persistence and refusal, in fact they are two sides of the same solution. You cannot solve one without solving the other. Fearless climbers who conquered Everest offer a good way to make a decision. Persistence is what gets you up the mountain, while rejection tells you when to come down. In fact, being able to turn around when you feel threatened is what helps you decide to go up in the first place. Just imagine that some decision you have made is your last and cannot be changed. Whatever you decide, you have to stick to that decision for the rest of your life. What will you feel? Our world is woven of chance. Not being able to change course or change your mind would be a disaster in a world that is constantly changing. Every choice we make is subject to a degree of uncertainty, and it is difficult to predict exactly what the consequences of a decision will be, at least when it is not in the short term. We are forced to rely on probability rather than certainty, because we have only partial information, much less than we would need to make a perfect choice. Already after we have chosen a certain course of action, new information is revealed to us, which becomes a kind of feedback. Each of us sometimes thinks, if I had known before what I know now, I would have done things differently. Silicon Valley is famous for slogans like move fast and break fast. They are implemented with a minimum viable product, MVP, strategy. MVPs are designed to gather information and test solutions quickly. If they don't work, you can abandon them before you spend too much time, money, and effort. Rejection is what allows companies and people to increase speed, improve efficiency, and experiment with the uncertainty that always accompanies a fast move. By giving up, you can take on something new, something that will probably work better. If you are near the summit of Everest and the weather turns bad, you can return to camp and keep yourself alive. If your doctor informs you that your heart can't take the strain, you can quit the sport, find something to do, and live happily ever after. If you go to work like a hard labor, you can give it up and find another one. Not to mention a boring movie or book that you don't have to spend time on. Refusing can be difficult because once we refuse, we usually don't get feedback and can't foresee the consequences. First, for most of the things we give up, it is impossible to find reliable data about how things would have turned out if we had not given them up. We can only hypothesize instead of data. We only have different what if. What would have happened if I hadn't closed the business? What would have happened if I had stayed in my old job? What would have happened if I had changed my major? Secondly, when we quit something, we usually follow the principle out of sight, out of mind. And we behave this way even in situations where the consequences of failure can be tracked and analyzed. But if there is an opportunity to deal with the consequences, it is definitely not worth neglecting. Stockbrokers can check what happens to the securities after they have sold them. They can ask themselves, did I sell at the right time? Did I sell too early or too late? When brokers open a position, they track it every day because it's part of the portfolio. But once the position is closed, they forget about it because it is no longer on the income statement. Conscious withdrawal. Quitting on time is difficult because we constantly feel that it is too early, that we can try again, 2, 5, 10. Our intuition tells us that by abandoning our chosen path, we will slow down progress because we have already spent too many resources on the goal. But in fact, the opposite is true. By stopping inactivity in time, we will begin to achieve results faster. The time machine is in our heads. Getting the timing right means looking into the future and seeing that the chances of success are too slim to invest the time, effort, and money to do so. The problem is that, perhaps because of our aversion to failure, we tend to rationalize the signs of future failure that show how bad things really are. Stuart Butterfield and his partners sold their photo-sharing site, Flickr, for $25 million. Stuart finally had the opportunity to realize a long-held dream of creating an online game whose goal was to build a world together. He assembled a team of former Flickr employees and started a computer game company called Tiny Speck. Their first product was the game Glitch. The company raised $17.5 million from venture capitalists. The game launched on September 27, 2011. Glitch was enthusiastically received by gamers and reviewers. By November 2012, the game had about 5,000 devoted fans who played at least 20 hours a week. Butterfield and partners then stepped up marketing, dropping paid advertising and tapping into affiliate networks to draw more people to the game. The plan worked. They got 10,000 new accounts in the weekend of November 10th to 11th alone. Nevertheless, Stuart Butterfield sent investors an email that began, "I woke up this morning with absolute certainty that Glitch was over." The co-founders were shocked. Glitch had just experienced incredible growth. However, Butterfield said he was leaving Glitch and advised him to return the remaining capital, about $6 million, to investors. Most of us, if we were Butterfield, would focus on the current inspiring results and dreams of future growth. We'd be working 24/7, attracting new investment and hiring more employees. But to make the right decision to quit, you have to mentally detach yourself from the present and put things in perspective. Stuart Butterfield was able to look into the future and see what others couldn't or wouldn't see. For the game to be a financial success, Tiny Speck needed hundreds of thousands of paying users. At the current conversion rate, that meant tens of millions of people would have to try the game. It would have had to endlessly spend money to attract new users, whose quality would be diminished. Glitch was a great game. Butterfield devoted 4 years to it. Put his reputation on the line. Convinced people to come to work, to quit their jobs, to get a lower salary in exchange for stock. But he later admitted that he should have ended the project even earlier, right after launch, when the first signs emerged that Glitch would be unprofitable. When we think about the future, we lean on our hopes, our goals, our ambitions. This optimism keeps us from seeing a disastrous future until it comes close to our doorstep. In management consulting, there is a rule of thumb that you should fire someone exactly when the idea first occurs to you. However, this rule is rarely applied. Most managers don't want to fire employees by clinging to them for too long. They end up paying a high price for their indecision. Jeff Smart, a management consultant and expert on hiring talent teams, concluded that at great cost and loss of productivity, a mistake in hiring costs 15 times more than that person's salary. Long retention of an employee only increases those costs. This is true for all of our cases. If we don't reduce or stop our losses in time, they will continue to pile up. If we go down paths that are no longer worth following, continuing a toxic relationship, not firing an ineffective employee, continuing a loss-making business, we deprive ourselves of the opportunity to move forward and achieve what we want. When Stuart Butterfield left Glitch, he freed himself to develop another product. He explored the potential of turning the Glitch development team's internal communication system into a productivity tool in its own right. It was handy. It allowed team members to communicate in real time, share documents, and other materials. Within 2 days of leaving Glitch, the team began work on a new Slack project. In August 2013, Slack announced its product launch. In June 2019, Slack went public in an IPO. On day one, the company had a market capitalization of $19.5 billion. In December 2020, Salesforce bought Slack for $27.7 billion. Even if Butterfield hadn't created Slack and simply returned capital to his investors, that in itself would have been a happy ending. And the fact that he turned an internal communication tool into a unicorn makes him even happier. Expected value. To make the right decision to leave or stay, you have to make an educated guess about the likelihood that things will go your way and the likelihood that the plan will not work. The value of expected value, or EV, helps, first, to decide whether a particular option will be positive or negative for you in the long run, and second, it allows you to compare different options to find out which one is better. The best choice is the one that carries the highest expected value. To determine the expected value for any course of action, you must first determine the range of possible outcomes. Some of these outcomes will be good to varying degrees and some will be bad, and each of these outcomes will have some probability. If you multiply the probability of each outcome by how good or bad it might be, and subtract the other from one value, you get the expected value. Imagine you are flipping a coin, which means there is a 50% chance a coin will fall heads and a 50% chance it will fall tails. Suppose that if the coin goes heads, you win $100, and if it goes tails, you lose $50. If you multiply the $100 you win by 50%, you get $50, which is your expected long-term winnings. Multiplying the $50 loss when the coin tails by 50% gives you a negative $25, your expected long-term loss. Subtracting $25 from $50 gives you the expected value of $25. That's a bet worth taking. Time, attention, and money are limited resources, and the number of things we can do in our lives is limited. When we think about whether we should stick with something, we need to honestly answer the question, if I switch to something else, will it have a higher expected value than what I'm doing now? If we find that the other path has a higher expected value, then abandoning the path we are on now and switching to the new path will cause us to move faster. When we flip coins or buy stocks, wins and losses are measured in money. But when we ponder who to marry, where to live, or what profession to pursue, the wins and losses are measured by happiness, health, fulfillment, time, and quality of life. And in these cases, expected value is also a useful concept for determining whether the path we take is worth pursuing. Stuart Butterfield used expected value to decide whether to continue developing Glitch. As a co-founder of a startup, he was dealing with an endeavor that had a low probability of success, but a huge potential payoff. Obviously, the vast majority of startups don't become Slack, Netflix, Twitter, or Facebook. Most startups fail. In his journey into the future on a sleepless night on November 11, 2012, Stuart Butterfield saw that his company did not have a high enough probability of becoming a unicorn. He realized that leaving the company had a higher expected value than continuing to work on the startup. Going forward to the past. Traveling into the future in your mind, you can see the range of possible outcomes and make a reasonable assumption about how likely each one is. But in some cases, you can also benefit from listening to a message from the past. Retired Admiral William McRaven is one of the world's most respected figures in U.S. military strategy, foreign policy, and counterterrorism operations. In a 37-year career, he has participated in 10,000 SEAL missions, including the destruction of terrorist Osama bin Laden. He has a large library of historical books that help him develop battle strategies, taking into account the experiences of Clausewitz, Napoleon, Schwarzkopf, and other commanders.
Admiral McRaven's own experience also allows him to predict the outcome of operations with a high degree of probability. The Admiral recounts, "The rookies say, you can't do this. And I tell them, no, we can do it. I've done it before." When we decide whether or not to give something up, we have to listen to people from the past and to earlier versions of ourselves. Forced denial. Sometimes rejection is our choice, but sometimes the world makes that choice for us and we are forced to stop what we are doing, no matter what we want. A partner may decide to break up with you, even if you want to keep the relationship. You may lose your job due to a massive layoff or company bankruptcy. A secure contract may go to a competitor. This is very painful, but sooner or later you have to accept the inevitable, pick yourself up and move on. That's exactly what Maya Shankar did. Maya was a talented violinist. Having begun studying at the age of 6, at 13 she auditioned for 16 Grammy Awards winner Itzhak Perelman and became his student. By the age of 17 Maya had already succeeded on the professional stage. And then she tore a tendon on her finger. For a year, Maya tried to perform, overcoming the pain and taking anti-inflammatory medication. Eventually she was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Now it was not only a question of giving up playing the violin, but that she would not be able to walk after a while. Overcoming her initial resentment at the unfairness of life, Maya applied to the prestigious Yale University and enrolled in the psychology department. After earning a degree in cognitive psychology, she went on to graduate school in Oxford. In England, Maya learned that her diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis was incorrect. After receiving her doctorate, she returned to the United States and joined the Cognitive and Systems Neuroscience Laboratory at Stanford University. There she realized she didn't like sitting alone in the lab for hours studying fMRI. Maya remembered that playing the violin solo was not to her liking either. So Maya gave up her academic career, despite the 10 years she spent pursuing her doctorate. During this period, Maya met her supervisor from Yale University, Dr. Laurie Santos, who told her about her incredible work in applied behavioral economics in government. Laurie invited Maya to join the team, and within a year she was leading the social and behavioral sciences team at the White House. When Obama left office in January 2017, Shankar also left, this time involuntarily, but was not left out, becoming Google's global director of behavioral science. There have been many dramatic changes in Maya Shankar's career that have ultimately contributed to her growth. Undoubtedly, things don't always work out so well for everyone. A torn tendon doesn't always end up going to Oxford. Leaving academia doesn't always lead to a job in the White House or an executive position at Google. The problem is that most of us never find other opportunities that way. But it's not that life is so unfair, it's that we just aren't looking. We put too much into the original plan and, having failed with it, we no longer hope for new breakthroughs. We shouldn't wait until we are forced to find a plan B. It's worth exploring possibilities, even when things are stable in life. Things change, and what we do now may not be the best path for us in the future. Having more options gives you the opportunity to switch when the time comes. Research can help diversify your portfolio of skills, interests, and opportunities. A diversified portfolio helps protect against uncertainty in more than just the stock market. Nothing lasts forever. Lessons from ants. The world is a fickle place. No matter what we do, a work project, sports, music, a relationship, it may not be there tomorrow. The world can take away what we are striving for. Or we may find ourselves in circumstances where rejection will be a victory and persistence will be a defeat. You may work at a job you love with a boss who has been a mentor to you, but that boss may leave and be replaced by some unpleasant person. You may enjoy life in your favorite apartment with a great view out the window until the new upstairs neighbors show up and have nightly parties. You can climb a mountain until it is shrouded in thick fog. In all of these situations, the expected value of the path is not the same as the original choice. Sometimes it's not the world that changes, but the person themselves, tastes, preferences, and values. The job one likes as a student will no longer be a dream job in one's 30s. When we are young, energetic, and ambitious, we are not afraid of busy work weeks and night flights. At 35,
not everyone is willing to sacrifice personal time for career advancement. Ants have been around for more than 100 million years. They have thrived in every climate and territory. They have become so good at surviving in part because they are always exploring something. Simply put, they always have a backup plan. Observe the ants. When they find something surprising, like a watermelon that rolled off the table in the backyard and broke into pieces, they don't run to it as a colony. Some of them stay away and look for other sources of food. While the watermelon is still there, some of the ants explore, but as soon as the owners get rid of the watermelon and thoroughly clean the floor, the ants switch to new exploration. Humans, unfortunately, don't explore different options or prepare alternate airfields until we are forced to. While Stuart Butterfield was focused on glitch, he didn't notice the potential unicorn under his nose. It took him dropping glitch to see the potential of slack. Sasha Cohen was forced to quit figure skating because of her age. This freed her from the grueling daily workouts, and she was able to do other things, get a degree from Columbia University, become an investment manager at Morgan Stanley, and start a family. She found much more happiness than she had experienced in the last few years of her career. But all of these changes were only possible after circumstances forced her to go looking for a new one. We humans would do well to follow the example of the ants and always do some research, try new things. Even if you like your job, it is good to look at job openings and go to interviews. First, even the most effective employees sometimes get fired. Secondly, you may stop liking your job, the product will start to fail, a new manager will come, the motivation system will change. Third, as a result of research, you'll learn about opportunities you didn't know you had before. The top 10 thoughts are: 1. We are taught from childhood that to refuse to do what we want means to fail, to capitulate, to lose. But excessive persistence can be futile and even deadly. 2. Really successful people know when it is necessary to be persistent and when it is better to refuse conceived. 3. When we stop an inefficient activity in time, we achieve results faster because we have more funds, time and energy available. 4. It can be difficult to refuse, because in case of refusal we usually cannot trace its consequences. We are also too sorry for the effort, time, and money we have already spent. 5. To evaluate the effectiveness of refusal, we need to look into the future and understand what the chances of success are and whether it is worth continuing to invest time, effort, and money. 6. To decide whether to persevere or abandon your current plan, you need to make an educated guess as to how likely it is that things will go according to your plan or that the plan, on the other hand, will not work. 7. To determine the expected value for any plan of action, you must first determine the range of possible outcomes. If you multiply the probability of each outcome by how good or bad it might be, and add it all together, you get the expected value. 8. When we make decisions about failure, we need to listen to the experiences of people from the past and earlier versions of ourselves. 9. Sometimes rejection is our choice, but sometimes we just have to stop what we're doing, regardless of our desire. So even when things are stable in life, it's worth following the example of the ants and always doing some research, trying new things, making alternative plans. 10. Research will help diversify your portfolio of skills, interests, and opportunities and protect you from uncertainty.